Thank you very much, Azu, for being with us, for having accepted first of being part of this online program that we organized from this association that we built in Spain in 2021, the Plataforma, Fotografía and Imagen. I mean, this association was built in order to promote the creation of this so long-awaited National Center of Photography in Spain. So now it looks like it's going to be the center is going to be a reality. Now it's a commitment of the Spanish Ministry of Culture. They already have appointed a director. This is Monica Carabias. But from the association, we're still working. We're still building this diverse community. And so the last 2 years, we have really worked hard in order to design and to create the first virtual photography portal, so a website that for us is very important because it is conceived to bring together as many agents as possible from very different fields that contributes to the development, to dissemination, and the preservation of photography in our country. And so in this context, and hence this online program, we think that it is very important for a Spanish audience, for a Latin American audience also, to hear and to give visibility for what we consider essential voices from the photography field, from very different parts of the world. And so from our Plataforma, we really wish to take the pulse of photography today and to reflect on the role of this medium nowadays. And what better way for us, I mean, we think, to engage with really leading international figures of photography, as you're one of them, and so to listen to you and to all your knowledge in order to share with us your experience. So in order to present to you, to our wide audience, I mean, you're an internationally renowned curator whose work mainly, but I mean, I suppose you're gonna explain to us much more about your all the different works you have done, but you explored these new models of engagement, and I think this is really the key point about what you're doing. You're a founder and director of the African Artists Foundation that is based in Lagos, in Nigeria, and you're also the director of the Lagos Photo Festival, that is an international photography festival that is also in Lagos. You're a publisher of Art-Based Africa, so a virtual platform that is dedicated to discover and to learn about contemporary art from the Africa and the diaspora. And your main core of work is this idea of reinvention of the museum, of a civic space for public engagement. And for us, this is something I think very important. So I'm sure you're going to explain to us much wider what it means to you, this idea of civic space nowadays. And so we give you the voice today, and this is in this platform in order, to give us your incredible ideas of what you have done, already achieved, and also what you think are the challenges of this medium that is, that make us this community of circulation of idea and of knowledge. So I'll let you speak, Azu, and thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much, Sandra. This is really an exciting opportunity to share some of my ideas. And I think that when I received the invitation to participate in this talk, I was super excited because I believe that photography is the definitive medium of our age and has such an incredible role to play in society. And it has always played that role. The unfortunate thing about the medium of photography and lens-based media in contemporary art is that over the last 2 decades, I'd say, the world of contemporary art has been dominated by economy, by money, by trade, by exchange, by extraction and extractivism, rather than what it can actually do to bring people together to engage. So, and I remember at the start of, I'd say, like, when there was the beginning of a global interest in Africa, in the major biennales and the major festivals, it was always the photographers and those who worked with lens-based media that were the leading voices. And that's because photography has the power of capturing the artifacts of our time. It informs, and when it's done well, it doesn't have to illustrate. It moves beyond illustrating and informing what we're doing in our time. And that's what contemporary art is about, making us feel and engage with the reality of our times in a poetic way, if you like. And so I wanted to sort of go back to the basis with this talk to sort of think about how photography can be dynamic, how photography is not a flat two-dimensional medium that people think of it, because everyone always thinks about collecting and the market, the primary market, the secondary market, but it's beyond that. It has such a powerful role beyond what we call in the market. So I'm just going to start with going through the presentation that I shared with you. And I understand that we have 15 minutes. I'm going to be on time. So a little bit about African Artist Foundation. This is a space that we have in Lagos, a photo of an event that we have outside of the foundation. We have spoken word events, performance. A lot of these things are mediated or emanate from the primary medium of photography, even at the foundation. So that's just a quick photo about the foundation. This is the space. And I really want to speak about the role of photography in tracing memory and shaping the future, from field work to framework. And the idea of photography as a medium that really archives our time. And so when you think about photography, you don't really think immediately about museums. People tend to think about the way photography is consumed. But I want to present a new way of thinking about photography and thinking about it as the medium that best archives and artifacts our time. So over the last, I'd say 10 years, the big conversation in museology in relation to majority world people have been dominated by the conversation around restitution. And restitution becomes this conversation that happens at a very high level between governments. And then you invite occasionally curators to go and give talks about restitution in Harvard, in Yale, at the British Museum. It becomes this thing that is like like a complex of restitution. A restitution industrial complex where people go and they just profit from it without actually understanding the very biology, the very spirituality, the very essence, the very core of what it means to restitute. So to restitute starts with thinking about the wrong of the past and correcting that wrong. It's not just a return. People say, oh, we're returning. But what about the epistemes? What about the knowledge that has been codified in those histories that you've kept? So when I worked as the director of the Zeiss Museum of Contemporary Art in South Africa, as an interim director, I also observed the collecting practice at the time, and I thought this is a future problem. The methodology of collecting today, of building artifacts of our time, of collecting what I mean artifact of our time, I mean if people were to come in 200 years, in 100 years, in 500 years to say, how did people live through COVID? How did people live through this period? What were these humans thinking at this time? What works of art would inform that moment for the rest of the world, not just for Europe, but for Africa, for Latin America? What are the things that we're collecting and archiving and researching that speak to our time? And so when I left the museum in February of 2019, I did the last show, a beautiful show for William Kentridge. After curating that show, I came back to Lagos and I thought we really need to think about restitution. And so I invited Dr. Clementine Dulles, I'll just move on to the next slide, who served for 5 years as the director of the Ethnographic Museum in Frankfurt. And during that time, she actually sat with these 5,000 objects that were collected through various practices in Germany from Africa. And the conversation around restitution, I want to emphasize that a lot of people who are interested in this conversation do not actually know what is in these museums, because you do not actually know what is in the British Museum because you don't see them. They are stored away in the basement somewhere, in the museum in Paris, in the Quai Branly, and Ethnographic Museum in Frankfurt. So how do we have a conversation when we haven't got eyeballs on these objects? And so we invited Comment in the List to travel with us on a research trip. And we traveled from Lagos, visiting all of these museums that were set up by the colonial authorities in Nigeria in the 40s, the 50s. Nigeria was created in 1914 as a geographical construct, and Nigeria became independent in 1960. So between 1914 and 1960, they were building museums to promote empire, but also to promote civic engagement toward the idea of what the geography entails. So we decided to travel these museums, and I said to Clementine, well, you've seen these objects, you've worked with them. She had an incredibly innovative way for her time. This was maybe 15 years ago, where she'd invite fashion designers, musicians, artists, sculptors, writers, to engage with these objects and to find new meaning with them, photographers. And so I thought this remediative practice became the logic for thinking about restitution going forward. And then as we traveled from Lagos, we went to Ibadan, we went to Abeokuta, Ile-Ife, we traveled with members of my team and the photographer. We got to Benin, the Republic, Benin City. And when we got to Benin, we realized that there was so much already. This is a picture of Clement Indoles and myself and Mr. Lainka, who's the gallery manager and the GM at African Artists Foundation. And we observed that there was still so much in these institutions. There was so much technology, low tech, high tech, that nobody talks about. The conversation had been hijacked by the popular narrative around Benin bronzes. And the Benin bronzes are important, but there's a lot more. And how do you build society? Society is not built through just hierarchy of that is aestheticized, but it's through community. How do you create community? We observed that there were toys that were made by our forebears 400 years ago, 800 years ago, you know? And these toys were meant to engage children with the communities. They were written motifs that were recursive and repeated for women to pass on knowledge amongst each other. There was the Gelede tradition, that is a Yoruba philosophy of knowledge sharing that goes from one generation to the next. There were all these beautiful things that we observed, and I said to myself, how do we pass this on? And then all of a sudden, COVID hit. So in 2020 March, we had the pandemic and everything just ended. And we couldn't now continue our research trip, but we had enough. And I said to the team, how do we use the medium of photography to pass on what we've seen to the wider public? Number one. Number two, how do we spark this hunger for heritage and restitution to the people? How do we democratize that knowledge? Now, people can be democratic about their sense of fashion, their football team, who they support in sports, who they support in music. But how do we do that with visual culture, with your heritage, with your history? And so we realized that the medium that will allow this transmission is photography. And so we designed what was called rapid response restitution. And that comes from the quick click of the camera in terms of the conversation around restitution. And through this conversation around restitution, we designed what was called the Home Museum. So it's a people's museum that is built through the image. So we said to the public, so I'll just read through some of the text, the idea around Home Museum. Home Museum was launched as part of Lagos Photo 2020 with the conviction that cultural heritage begins in the home. Each household harbors its ancestors and cosmogonies. Through an open call, to citizens of all ages and backgrounds, the project invited participants to share images of artifacts, personal collections, cherished possessions that reflect their individual and communal ideas of heritage. Conceived as a predominantly online exhibition to ensure wide and safe circulation, Home Museum foregrounds inclusive participation as a model for diasporic and Pan-African engagement with questions of restitution and repatriation. So what we asked of the people was to say, make 6 to 12 images of objects that you have an attachment to. So Sandra, if I said to you, you need to move to Japan for the next 3 years, you don't need to take any clothes, you don't need to take any food. We're going to shop and we're going to, buy everything you need. But what are the 6 to 12 objects that you'll take with you so that when you have your apartment in Japan, in Tokyo, you feel at home? It could be a bar of soap. It could be a picture of your mom. It could be a portrait of your dad. It could be a pair of glasses that your grandfather gave to you. This is how the idea of Home Museum made manifest in the wider public. And we translated the open call into about 14 languages. A lot of the local African languages, then Chinese, French, Spanish, and a few other languages, Fon, Pidgin English, because we really wanted the widest distribution possible. And it was such a wonderful, this is a letter that we drafted, dear friend, we write you to, we also use colloquial language, shine your eyes, as a way, it's a kind of Nigerian slang to say to pay attention, to be vigilant, to what are those objects in your home. And remember, we couldn't go to museums at this time. We couldn't visit each other. We couldn't commune, but we could build this community online. So this was the open call as part of the rapid response restitution. And you can see the beautiful collection and association that we built. And the other thing about the Home Museum that was quite important to emphasize was the website was built by a collective that was based in Frankfurt called the Birds of Knowledge. And this collective is a group of students who are from all over the world, from Kenya, from Korea, from the Netherlands, from Germany. It was a diverse group of people who took this project and really ran with it. A few objects, there were associations from the collection. Coins. So the idea of the Home Museum expands the museum beyond the walls, excuse me, toward the digital commons for collective memory and cultural return. And we also asked the respondents to send a short 1-minute video to describe why they selected these 6 to 12 objects and why these objects have a particular signification to their collection or to their sense of being. And we had very important artists, famous artists sending work. We had, amateurs, all sorts of people, and we're able to build this beautiful online museum that is accessible and can be ordered by anyone. It was really quite successful. And through the logic of the Home Museum, we evolved this idea of broadening the diasporic space toward a project called Dig Where You Stand, because we were interested in how objects that we make today can create the form of return, can create the opportunity for us to learn through looking, because for the longest time we stopped looking, and the image forces you to look, to pay attention. So I wouldn't go too much into Dig Where You Stand because I see that we're running out of time, but I just wanted to explain that a lot of these ideas around future museology start from the image. And how do you remediate that image to create the opportunity for us to generate knowledge? How do we travel those images and these ideas beyond borders? I've come to this conclusion that the future of museology and the future of humanity in terms of visual culture and contemporary art has to move beyond national boundaries. And if there's any kind of geography that we should be interested in, it should be cities. So what is the similarity between, say, Lagos and Madrid? What does Barcelona have in common with Benin? These associations are more relatable, more meaningful than national boundaries, because the national boundaries get hijacked by populist ideas. And we've seen where those proto-fascist narratives have taken us. This is we're talking about return. I'll just use this final image to explain the idea of how visual culture transforms and creates opportunity for return. And so reggae music is an invention of Black diasporic people who have traveled to the US in chains as enslaved people, and that the descendants created Motown. And Motown created the important music moment in the 20th century. And that was such a transformative way of bringing knowledge and bringing feeling and bringing spirituality to the world. And in the Jamaican islands, people would listen to Motown music and on the radio. And when they tune into the radio, depending on the weather, the clarity of the sound is affected by the wind and the choppiness of the ocean. And so that introduced a natural woofer, wavy sound into the music that inspired the invention of reggae music. And so this dub ship that you see here is called a dub ship that is inspired by the woofer sound that reggae music produces. And these things were informed by visual culture, by album covers. You know, the album that Marcus Garvey's album made, it was called Black Star Line. This is called inspired by the Black Star Line. The artist listened to that album. He was fascinated by the album cover. He was like, wow, this is really an important movement. There was a shipping line called the Black Star Line. And then said, how can I take this to the next level of imaginary where the sea is no longer the border? We can travel in space. And they invented the dub ship. And this is what I mean by transforming knowledge through visual culture. And I'll just finally end by talking about the current edition of Lagos Photo Festival called Incarceration and Photography as a Form of Resistance. This image is a performance by Danielle Wood, who is a space engineer and an astronaut, right? So she's an African-American space engineer who, from when she was 8 years old, decided that she was going to become an engineer. And she was inspired by the story of Harriet Jacobs. Harriet Jacobs is an African-American abolitionist who escaped slavery by living in a tiny box, the dimension of a spacecraft. So when these astronauts were training for space travel, they lived in this box. They lived in this. And so she realized that the dimension of Harriet Jacobs' space, because she lived in an attic to escape slavery for 7 years, a tiny space. So the masters did not see her. And she thought by incarcerating herself in an attic, she was able to escape slavery. And she thought that was a wonderful metaphor for thinking about space travel as another space for Black existence outside of the current state of the world. So this was the theme of Lagos Photo Incarceration, and we thought it was an incredible idea to think about how incarceration becomes a way of thinking about freedom. So she gave this wonderful performance. This is another work by another incredible artist, Stefan Ruiz, who documented the San Quentin prison in California for 30 years. His mother taught art in the prison, and his father was a defense attorney. So he got in there, assisting his mom as a 17-year-old, and he really fell in love with the prisoners and fell in love with the project. And it became this lifelong obsession, working in the same prison and understanding how in the land of the free and the brave, one country in America is responsible for 23% of globally incarcerated people. So this is what photography can do. It can spark conversation. It can illustrate, but it can also present these ideas in a poetic way. So thinking about these two dipolar works that come from different, one comes from performance, one comes from long form documentary storytelling. they converge in the festival, where an African American is collaborating with a Mexican American, and we're presenting the work in Lagos. This is what I love about photography, because it's about our common humanity and how we can share these histories together, and how we can also think about maybe not solutions, but think about possibilities to create change. So thank you, and I hope you got something from the conversation, and I'm open to questions about this brief presentation, Sandra.
So thank you so much. As I mean, it's always a pleasure to listen to you in order like to really feel the power of poetics that you have mentioned a few times in your presentation. You know, I think in the days that we live in, you know, to think about the power what poetics can bring, and as you have pointed in your presentation, what image and photography can be one of this tool of creating this new poetry that we needed as human beings in order to be more connected and to fulfill this idea of community that for sure you've been fighting and working in for so long, from Lagos all around the world, because it's as you say, you know, and I think this is why we wanted to have your voice today, the idea of not restricting, not being only, you know, about a part of the country, a part of the geography in the world, but the idea of if we work with this tool of image and photography, we're always talking about a tool that is talking about, as you say, democratization, about circulation of knowledge, circulation of stories, circulation of everything. And this is what you try, I think, very beautifully, because you also do something that I think is very important, and I would like you perhaps to go a little bit deeper on that, but like how you cross all the different languages and disciplines, and you have perfectly, you know, pointed in what you're doing in Lagos in the festival now, like a performance and a photography, a documentary. I mean, all these different languages finally will bring the possibility of building, of engaging differently in our world, because I do think that photography has this capacity, you know, of broader the frontiers, and not just like, you know, keeping us in these small little words that are fragmented, but at the end just like deconstruct all this, you know, and bring us in the necessity of being much more connected, in fact, you know. And this incredible tool is making people connected, but we need also the knowledge of how it connects us. And so that's why I mean the different initiatives that you have bring together, I think they go into this direction of creating community, not creating, you know, a closed community. This could be perhaps one of the dangers, you know, that us as a platform, we want to be there in order, like for perhaps in this new center that is going to be in Spain. We don't want it to be, and we fight it in order for that it is being a center and not a museum. We don't want it to be something that is closed. We don't want it to be centralized. We want really to be a network about what has been done all around the geography of Spain and beyond. And that's why your voice is so important in this part of like how to bring new meanings, you know, through this incredible medium that is photography and contemporary image.
Well, thank you so much, Sandra, for your kind words. I'll use two projects to illustrate a little bit about what I believe is the confluence of ideas. Today, the average person on the phone in society has a mobile phone, and today the average person has seen more images than the generation before us by maybe 6 times more or 7 times more at each stage of their lives, and it keeps progressing geometrically. So it does not mean that they're more visually literate. It just means that they're seeing a lot more. Now, how do we make them more visually literate? How do we understand the typologies that are inherent in the medium so that people can understand how they're being shuffled into certain rooms that they're not aware of? There's a project that perhaps I should have, spoken about very briefly in my presentation that really relates to the home museum, rapid response restitution, and my work in how photography creates opportunities for connection. So immediately after the home museum was launched, the year after, I received a message from Ana Briongos, who's a Spanish Catalan writer whose mother lived in the 70s with a Nigerian, close to a Nigerian artist who was studying photography and fine art at the Escuela Massana in Barcelona, a very prestigious school in the 60s for fine art. And this Nigerian artist was there living and studying in Spain. And he made friends with Ana Briongos' mother. And he left a suitcase with Ana Briongos. And in this suitcase, and he moved to the UK because he had family in the UK in London. And he said, look, I'll be back soon to pick it up. And he never came back. So for 50 years, this suitcase was in the home of Ana Briongos and the mom. And they had no way of finding this Nigerian Prince Adewale Oyenuga. And so she wrote to me to say, Azu, I love your home museum project. I've seen what you're doing with it, and I'm interested in returning this suitcase. It's a restitutive gesture. We had a very good bond with this Nigerian artist who was studying in Spain, and we want to return this suitcase to his family or to him if he's still alive. My mom told me to do this as a dying wish when she lived to be 99. So I feel the burden. So again, this was during COVID, so I couldn't go there. So I called up Maurice Noimola, who's teacher in Barcelona, and he went to Spain. He went to Ana Briongos' home, and he was like amazed to see the archive. Beautiful photographs, beautiful letters, lots of drawings that really gives us a snapshot of what the correspondence between Nigeria and diaspora was like over that period when he was in Spain. And this was a very significant period, the period of the Civil War, the Nigeria Civil War, which today, by the way, nobody talks about.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things that people want to pretend like it never happened. But the correspondence between him and his relatives back home and the intervention he'd make on the photograph. So he'll look at a photograph and he'll make a cross over someone who's passed on. And these things became such an incredible way of understanding that very particular history. And this is through photography. And then eventually, long story short, we eventually found the family. The prince had died, but his mom was alive and his children were alive. And we returned and repatriated the suitcase in a wonderful ceremony at the Spanish consulate in Lagos, Nigeria. And it was beautiful. Again, this is what the image can do. The photo you see in front of you is how certain cultures in Nigeria deal with grief, deal with transition, and deal with death. Again, this is vernacular photography. So in Nigeria and in Ghana, when people pass on, they make these posters and they communicate the feeling where the kind of Photoshop effect that is very typical and aestheticized. There's also the design of the poster that has a lot of text and image and very kind of loaded with a lot of cliches, but it works, right? And it becomes this beautiful thing that they create to sometimes celebrate the passing or to mourn the loss of a loved one. So these two artists collaborated to work with the image to create these beautiful light boxes. And there's a sound piece that you cannot hear that goes with it that really was composed by the artist to allow these images come to life. Because the language that they use when people pass on is transition to glory. It's a way of saying that they're still with us, but they're not with us. It's capturing themselves through presence. And I believe that this is what the image does, always capturing something that is in transition, or is about to move, or is about to fly like a bird, or is about to change form. We're trying to capture that. And that's what photography does. And I think this is a wonderful way to just think about the medium and the magic of the medium of photography, how it allows us to engage with reality, to engage with history, to engage with loss, with tragedy, to engage, period. Have to stop being classicist in the way we think about art. We also have to understand that art goes beyond collecting and collections that, with the wealthy. It's vital for our existence, it's vital for our survival, it's vital for our humanity. And the more we embrace the benefits of, really truly tuning into our common humanity and feeling and being empathetic and being compassionate, then we have a chance to survive as a species. But if we continue this idea of thinking that there's a kind of hierarchy of value, of geographies, of people, of race, and we're harming ourselves. It's inherent risk. We're building in problems for ourselves. Nothing is gained by that. Everybody benefits from the generosity that art offers. When you make something beautiful that everyone can engage with, when you create opportunities for people with ideas to express themselves, everybody benefits from it.
Well, so I will thank you for your generosity again, for the generosity of giving us, your way of seeing, this medium, the way of how you defend it, how you resist in it, how you bring the different voices around it. And so we wish you again to still have this poetry strength, to still building incredible projects that we, for sure, from Spain and from our Latin American and Spanish audience, we will still continue to vision, and we hope to still continue in, this interchange and knowing that we share, this important value of sharing and of same community. And so thank you very much as well.
Thank you so much. You're cross-pollinating ideas, and you're building your community before the institution actually opens. So it's a brilliant approach. I really support you, and I'm very proud to have this conversation with you. And I wish you all the very best going forward.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chung Hee Han, Director of Photography, Seoul Museum of Art, known as Photosema. And first, again, I'd like to thank you, Sandra, for inviting me to this meaningful event and then giving me a chance to introduce Photosema to the world. Today, I will talk about Photosema and share how the museum was founded and then what it represents in the field of photography and contemporary art scene, and then all the progress we have made since our opening in this year. I'm going to share my presentation first. Yeah, this is Photosema, and Photosema is the first public art museum in Korea, especially specializing in photography. And it opened on May 29th this year. And so it's one of the youngest photography museum in the world. And the museum is also a branch of Seoul Museum of Art, one of the Korea's most influential art institute. It's located in northeastern Seoul, and the museum covered 7,048 square meter across two underground level and then 4 above ground floor. And from its earliest the planning stage and to its public opening, it took more than 10 years. Yeah, the idea for Photosema began in 2015 when the Seoul Metropolitan Government launched the project, what it called the City of Museum Seoul Initiative. The plan is like to build cultural institutions, not only in the city center, but across all the district, so that residents could access the culture in their own neighborhood. So here you can see the map of Seoul Museum and the Art Museum as of 2020, like here. Oops, sorry. And it's clearly shown that imbalance, nearly all institutions were concentrated on the center of the city, Seoul. So for your reference, the red dot is like all the museum, and then the blue dot is represents the art museum. So the northeastern area, just the circle part, where the Photosema now stand, has only 4 museums like that, and there is no art museum at all. Even in 2023 statistics, the right side, the district of Dobong-gu, where the Photosema is located, does not appear in this list. So Seoul City decided to establish new museum in this underserved region, Dobong. So then the next question was that what kind of museum should be built? So according to archival record from that time, the photographers strongly advocate for the photography museum for these 3 key reasons. First is that the photography has become a dominant means of communications, especially with the smartphone. So in Korea, smartphone usage exceeds 90% in late 2010s. And then more than 90% of users take photographs daily using their smartphone. And also, second, the photography continued to reshape the modern and contemporary art and a broader field of visual culture. And third, despite this importance, the Korea had only 2 photography specialized art museum and 1 photography museum, and all privately operated, and one of them located very south part of Korea. And these institutions are highly respected, but photography community long desire the establishment of public photography art museum. So at this point, I should explain why establishing a public photography art museum is meaningful. In Korea, museums fall into 3 categories. One is national museum, run by the central government, and second is a public museum, mostly run by local government or public institution. And then third is a private museum run by individual or their foundation. So because I spent more 10 years working in a public art museum before joining this museum, Photosema, I have very clear sense of this difference. Public museum can make a fast decision and then carry out the ambitious project, but their activity depends heavily on private funding, and then often require some financial sustainability. So public museum, however, place a priority on the public value rather than the profit. So this means they can sustain long-term projects such as research and preservations, which may not generate revenue, but are essential for the public cultural good. So the photography community believe that a public institution is truly needed, and that should be able to carry out other essential public functions continuously and independently. So this belief eventually led to the proposal for a public photography art museum in Seoul. So this is kind of how we make a process to build this museum, because it took like more than 10 years. So after many photographers just said that a public photography art museum is needed, so the Seoul City government, metropolitan government, decide that let's make photography museum in northeastern area, Dobong. It was around 2015. So following that decision, the city just selected the site and then began the reviewing the feasibility of the building, such as an art museum. So in Korea, any new museum project must pass the feasibility test and review by the Ministry of Culture and Sports and Tourism. So Photosema completed this assessment in 2016, and a master plan for the building this art museum was established at that time. And in 2018, the International Architecture competitions selected Austrian architect Mladen Jadrik and Korean architect Yoon Gun-ju. So the city also launched the major research project to define the museum's collection strategies. And beginning in 2020, the architectural work and then collection building progressed simultaneously. And then the museums identified its core mission, like to establish a comprehensive 140 years history of Korean photography. So although more than a century has passed since photography entered Korea, the formal research remained limited. So many historically significant work were in danger of being lost as artists aged or passed away. So this urgency shaped our collection mission. And then as a part of this effort, we began research on Korea's earliest photographic artists. So we ran a pre-opening program to introduce the museum project to the public at the same time. And then we conducted the policy research needed to guide the future operation of the museum. And this effort continues from 2020 and 2024. And then, however, all this work was carried out under the museum division of Seoul Metropolitan Government, not by the museum or Seoul Museum of Art. So that means although the museum division is in Seoul Metropolitan Government include 1 or 2 curators in the team, it means that they could gather the artwork as a collection, but they cannot define the museum's mission and curatorial directions, operation strategies. So they were also the ongoing discussion about whether the new museum should become an independent institution or operate as a branch of Seoul Museum of Art. So after long discussion, they just made a decision that in order for the museum to be properly established and stabilized, it was clear that we need capable curators and the museum professional who could carry forward the many tasks required to build and operate the museum. So for this reason, it was eventually decided that the photography museum would become a part of Seoul Museum of Art. So finally, in July 24, 9 years after planning began, the museum's official team was formed. So I was appointed as the first director at the time. The team was then formed, bringing together 2 curators who had previously worked in the museum division. So after my appointment, I began defining the museum's mission and operational strategies and launched the preparation for opening that has not yet been undertaken beyond the collection effort with my team. And based on our missions, we developed the exhibition direction and then finalized the inaugural exhibition. And also we developed our exhibition program and defined the education and research direction, and then created our in-house storage facility and then brought back all the artwork and material, archival work previously stored outside of the Seoul. So we also work to create the exterior and interior design that reflect a unique identity of a photography art museum. So I would like to briefly introduce the museum building. The building was inspired by the movement of camera's aperture, not as a little imitation, but as a conceptual starting point. So the building is made of a stacked black line element that created the twist type at the bottom like that. And depending on the weather and then sunlight, the facade shift from deep black to the different shade of gray. And then it's the architecture way of showing how photography captured the light and the time. So the architect also lifted the base like slightly and to form the open public space and suited for the civic museum. And then next to us, the Photosema, there is like oval shaped AI science museum. So the twist at the base of our hexagonal building help to harmonize the forms of two structures. And this is the interior of our museum, Photosema. So you can see there's some photos here. And the left side is our lobby. And it's a 10-meter high lobby. Just the galleries on the second and third floor. And each of the gallery has a ceiling height like from the 4 meter and the 5 meter. And the key color in the inside the building are black, white, and gray. So this neutral palette allow us to display the photograph of any color tone and any size. The second floor, as you can see the second left photos, there is no 9-degree walls because of the curved facade, like the perfect space. So it's a perfect space for the experimental contemporary photographic art. And third floor, we have a very traditional white cube gallery. So fourth floor include classroom, like the like the left one, you can see the orange colored classroom here. This is our classroom. So it's located in the fourth floor. So fourth floor include the classroom and a dark room and the photo library and a small sunken garden. So this space allows visitors to rest after viewing exhibition and experience photography through books and programs. You can also see the museum's furniture in these photos. The furniture was designed together with a professional designer. It adds like energy to museum's neutral color and then let visitors experience photography in new and different way. And the furniture was inspired by the element of photography like a frame and aperture. Because of this design choice, so visitors can experience photography in multiple forms from the moment they enter the museum and then like until the moment they leave. So from this moment on, I'd like to move on the content of our museum, and then I'm gonna begin with its collection. So one of the museum's most important tasks during the preparation stage was establishing the clear collection direction. So we conducted extensive research on Korean photography history, including the major event and the key photographers, as well as studying the photography collections held by major art museum in Korea. This is one of the charts of that. So this chart you see here shows the result of this research. So we just published the result of our collection research. So it's like this thick books like that. Through this research, we just established the core principle for the museum's collection of collecting philosophy like to acquire work that plays a decisive role in the history of Korean photography. And based on that, we set a more detailed direction. So, for example, the collection should include the material that support the museum's research and exhibition and education and publication. And it should also include the signature work and research that represent the museum's identity. And in addition, because the Seoul Museum of Art already hold a collection of contemporary photographic work, especially those from the late 1990s onward. So we decided that the photography museum would complement that collection by acquiring works and material that cover earlier period as well. So allowing us, like including Photosema and Sema, to build the collection that spans all the era. So using this principle, we identified 2016 photographers who were active from the 1920s into the early 2000s. And then based on the list, we just proceed our collecting activity. As a result, we acquire approximately 21,000 works and material. And I just put some photos as an example like this. So as you can see, we now hold our artwork and negative, and then camera, the manuscript, and scrapbooks by 26 artists. And many of these include vintage print like this. So this work and material will continue to be presented to the public through a wide range of projects, just as they were in our inaugural exhibition. So since my appointment in 2024, I have defined the mission and the vision of Photosema as follows. So I just think that Photosema should be the place that explores its artistic value and cultural impact as one of the most influential media in contemporary society, because we are one of the branch of Seoul Museum of Art. So we are not just the museum, we are one of the art museum. So we have to keep focusing on its artistic value and the impact of one of the influential media in a contemporary society as a artistic form. And also, I think we had to foster some kind of a dialogue engagement along the creators and audience of visual culture in Korea beyond through our exhibition and the program. And also, we have to commit to research project, huge research project, and that has to be continuously happen. And then we have to focus on the past and present and the future of photography. And also we have to keep going to collect and preserve related work and archival material. This is our mission. So with this mission in mind, I think Korean Photosema aims to become a place where people of all background and interest can encounter photography and understand that and talk about it, and they connect with one another through it. This is our vision. So based on the mission and vision, I just set up the operation direction like this. It's quite many. So we Photosema plan to present exhibition and program that highlight the creativity of photography. And then in particular, the museum aim to offer new and creative and experimental exhibition, ranging from classical photography to contemporary photographic practice. And also, the education programs are designed to help visitors enjoy photography and understand it more deeply and discover new perspective. Through this program, visitors can experience the challenges and creativity and sharing and collaboration all through the medium of photography. And the museum also intends to continuously identify and collaborate with the talented artwork and curators, educators, researchers, and creating opportunity for those who love photography to develop and express their ability with this space. And in addition, the museum will carry out ongoing research that contribute to establishing the history of Korean photography and fostering discourse on its history of museum. And even we just shared on the future of the museum in this like AI-centered era. And so for the key strategy is to collect and preserve and study and to share the important work. This is our operation direction. So November now marked the 6 months since the museum's opened. So during that time, we have already welcomed more than 180,000 visitors through our two inaugural exhibition and a series of a special lobby project and the education program and the photo library. So our museum includes not only the Korean public, but also the professionals from photography institutions across the world. So through these exchanges, so we are preparing like international collaboration that will unfold the year after. So we have also completed the midterm exhibition and program planning for the next 3 years, along with the long-term operational strategies. So going forward, we'll continue to develop Photosema from the visitor center's perspective, offering a space where everyone who loves photography can share their story and creativity. This is everything I prepared for today. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, it's really, I mean, enthusiastic to see, all the incredible work that you have already achieved. I mean, only in 6 months of the opening, but as you perfectly has explained, I mean, in order to have this incredible museum, you have needed at least this 10 years of working and also of having the knowledge of also an art museum being there. I mean, I think this is what gets, about these incredible results because of this long-term, development that gives the possibility of really thinking about the needs and the challenges and also the different elements required in order to really build something that has a sense in our contemporaneity and that has a sense of thinking about what the past has bring in order to really be a center, museum, an institution for the future. And I really congratulate you about having had the possibility of bringing all this together because I mean, for us as being part of the community, of knowing also what is going on internationally, we know that the needs of this diverse community has to have all these elements that you have pointed. I mean, the element of going back to the roots, I mean, to the preservation, to the collection, to the history of this medium, in order to preserve it and to pass the knowledge to new generation, and also to be absolutely aware about all the challenges and all the phases that you have described are absolutely in it, Yeah, so the first exhibition, what you did exactly, and what was it in the when you started the museum in May?
In terms of inaugural exhibition of Photosema, we have two exhibitions, which happened on second floor and third floor. Okay. So as I mentioned before, the second floor gallery has no 9-degree walls. It's very challenging to set up the the exhibition. So we just think that what kind of exhibition do we have to for the first time? So we made the decision that, okay, let's show the whole process and result of 10 years preparation of this museum. So
Okay.
second floor, we just have the show what it called the story. So it's a kind of a huge archival work. We just present the whole the archival work on the whole the process to build this museum, like more than 4 and 5 years. So we just invited 6 contemporary photographers, and then ask them just to visit this construction site, and then just to make their own art pieces using photography based on their own experience of building this museum. So normally, from my experience, the museum or art museum just to show the whole the photos from the beginning and the end of the the span of building the museum, like the digging the ground and the ceiling like that. So I don't need it. We don't need it. So we just want to show the another possibility of photography. So we just invited like contemporary photographers, and then they just shows their own art pieces, like dealing with photography itself. So some artists just to make a record on what's happening around this area, and then some just photographer just took a photos of inside of a construction site, and then they just make a photo collage, and so just thinking about all the material for using the building this museum, and the other just using the AI. So how they just she just wanted to talk about how to enjoy our collection with AI like that. So this is the second floor, the inaugural exhibition, Story. And in contrast, the third floor, we have a white cube space. So we just wanted to show the whole result of collecting our collection. So we have the exhibition what they call the Radiance, the beginning of Korean photography. So we select five photographers from 1920s and 1990s among these 26 photographers in our collection. They are very significant features who just make important point of in our Korean photography history. Like they just said photography is like art. So they just dealt with photography as an artistic medium. So we just shows our collection with the point of view as a photography as art, as a third floor inaugural exhibition. So tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, we're gonna have a third inaugural exhibition. So yeah, we're gonna invite more than 36 master of Korean contemporary artists. And then we just selected photography work they just used, and they just took photos, and they just make their own image using the photography work. So it's gonna just like shed on the light on how the photography impact to the Korean contemporary art itself. So with this kind of perspective, we just wanted to say that like Korean photography has its own value as a creativity and artistic media, and also how can I say the impact of the medium in our contemporary society and then in contemporary art field.
Perhaps I will ask you a small question concerning the organization of the museum. So how many people are in the staff of the museum? How many people work?
That's very sad story, because we have 4 curators and 1 educators and one person who was specialized in the administrative. and then 2 people who are in charge of architectural work and the engineering things. So we total have 9, including me. And then we have 5 interns. That's it.
Okay.
So considering the size of the museum, it's quite small.
Yeah, because there's somebody like specialized in collection. I mean, like so it's people directly concerning about the collection, because this part is so huge work. And with that, you collaborate with different people from in order like to.
Every task has done with the collaboration, because 4 curators work as a specialist of a collection or PR, and then what else? Like a librarian, and then visitor service at the same time. Even though they have to make their own exhibition and they have to conduct their own research, so we have to work at the same time, simultaneously, so many things. So to complete their own work, we have to looking for right company or right person or which we can collaborate with.
Okay.
Everything is collaboration.
Yeah. If not, your life is in the museum. 24 hours of museum. Yeah. So really thank you so much, I mean, for giving us the opportunity to discover this incredible museum. We really hope like we could keep, collaborating, as that you have friends in Spain that are eager to establish important networks, and we think that in our contemporary time it's really important to be together, to exchange experience, and to find the ways in order like to collaborate. We work in a medium that it's all about collaboration, it's all about circulation, and so that's why our aim main is to still in that to still circulate ideas, circulate efforts and networks and whatever you need. We hope we can go to South Korea in order to discover this incredible museum, and I'm sure if you come to Spain, you will be more than welcome to do whatever. And really thank you so much for this incredible engagement, and we wish you the best on the next for the next exhibition in 2 days, and then for all what you have to deal with, and that's it. Yeah, so thanks again for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me and giving a chance to talk about our museum. And then I looking forward to seeing you soon in Spain or Korea someday. And then let's looking for the possibility to work together and then make a great chance to collaborate. Hope you again soon, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. So today we have with us David Companies, who is a curator, he's a writer, an editor, and an educator, and now he's the creative director of an iconic center, this International Center of Photography, ICP, in New York. He has worked internationally with very important exhibition. He has curated many exhibitions abroad and also in the States, and with a large numbers of book and publication and essay concerning what is the core and the philosophy of what is image today and what the challenges. So that's why we wanted you to be with us in this program, in order like you could share with you your own experience that you have developed all these years, but also as witness of the major changes, of the tool and the medium that have taken place and continue to take place, and also to learn also a little bit more about this, what the role in this center of the ICP, what are the reflection and thoughts on the current challenge of this photographic ecosystem that we share. So thank you very much to be with us, and so this is your time to share with us. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra. That's very kind. You're at a very exciting moment. But first of all, just to pick up on what you said there at the end, Sandra, I joined ICP maybe 5 years ago. It was a slightly wobbly start because I arrived just before the pandemic. But the reason I joined ICP is that I'd always had a background in teaching. I was attached to a university for a long time, curating exhibitions, freelance. I was never attached to an institution before I joined ICP. Writing and editing. And I was very interested in the history of photography as well as all of the kind of contemporary issues and challenges. So when ICP asked me to join, the unusual but very exciting kind of portfolio of departments and activities at ICP really suited me and drew on all of the different parts of my experience in the past. So I'm doing what I used to do before I was at ICP, but now it's really all under one. It's all under one roof. We have a museum with an exhibitions program, which is quite extensive, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We have a school. The museum, or ICP as an institution, has existed since 1974. So we just had our 50th anniversary last year, and we've had a school of photography, very influential school of photography, since 1977. So nearly as long. And our museum and our school and also our library are all in the one building here on the Lower East Side. The only part that's not here is our very extensive collection. We've been collecting from the beginning, really. That's out in another part of the city at a specialized institution, and we have a director of collections and staff out there that oversee the collection. And we do show collection images within our exhibitions. We also loan. The collection is also a study center for researchers and scholars. Our library is overflowing. In fact, we have some of our books down one of our office corridors here. The interesting thing about photographic books is an institution, a specialized library, could stay on top of photo book publishing really until about the year 2000, and then there was this great renaissance, and there's so many books, interesting books being made, that it's actually quite difficult to keep pace with what's going on internationally. We publish our own books, usually in conjunction with our exhibitions, and we have a very ambitious public program department. There's 2, 3, sometimes 4 events going on. Public events. These might be book launches, talks, symposiums. We have a big photo book festival once a year where we invite 60 or 70 publishers. And our staff team is approximately 44 people, although there are sessional staff in the school, and it's a little bit flexible. But that's just a kind of quick overview. And we're in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. We were in Midtown for a while, and before then, if you know anything about the geography, we were much further up in Upper East Side. But we came to the Lower East Side because it was a new building, big gallery spaces, and a chance to have pretty much everything that we do under one roof. And that's really when I joined. So ICP moved to this space at the end of 2019, and I joined beginning of 2020. And I should say that we were founded by Cornell Kappa, the photographer, who had a slightly more famous brother, Robert Kappa. We have the full collection of Kappa's work, both of the Kappas here in our collection. And we were founded pretty much with the idea of what used to be called concerned photography. Socially concerned, politically concerned. So at the beginnings, it grew out of photojournalism and kind of independent documentary work that we might associate with, the big publications of the 20th century. But what concern means for photographers and what it means is constantly changing, and we keep a very, very wide view of that. So while we might show work that people associate with, concerned photojournalism of the 20th century, that's only a small part of an important part, but it's a small part of what we do. While we do look back at the history of photography and try and make those connections and carry that complex past with us, we're also responding very much to what's going on with the medium now. We're always thinking about this balance between photography's past and its present and its future. I've always been acutely engaged with that. I often find that the world of photography can be quite amnesiac. The present moment of photography often thinks it's facing problems that have never been faced before, and the past of photography has nothing to do with the present. That's only half true. So we're always looking to make connections, but also to highlight what are the challenges that we face at this point. We're very inclusive in terms of approaches that photographers take, both in our school and in our exhibitions program. We're very inclusive in terms of their backgrounds. We're very inclusive in terms of the subject matters and where they are in the world. We have international in our name. Our students that come to study here, either in person or in our online programs, come from all over the world. During the pandemic, I was hosting public programs online, and our audience would sometimes dial in from 30 plus countries. You're looking at a little installation shot of an exhibition that I oversaw during the pandemic, where we launched a hashtag online asking people to upload images of what was going on in the world as people went into lockdown, masks and so forth. And we actually turned that into an exhibition. And when we reopened our gallery spaces in October of 2020, we had an exhibition that kind of chronicled month by month what was going on, what had been going on all the way around the world. 820 images from 72 countries, kind of a mass participation show, and 10 or 12 of us here at ICP were selecting the images, so there wasn't one overview person. That's a good example of a show that we would do, which is very responsive to what's going on in the world. So these images would start life on social media like Instagram, and then they would become an exhibition, and eventually they became a book of this project. So you have screen, wall, page. I'm very interested in the fact that photography belongs very equally to all of these spaces and platforms now, screens, walls, and pages. And so I'm always thinking about photography as something that often moves between these things. Good. Just some install shots of our spaces, very, very beautiful, large gallery spaces. We also have some smaller ones that are more intimate, maybe for smaller, more historical work. Big William Klein show that we did in 2022. A show about the scale of photographs. Most photographs make things smaller than they are in real life. Sometimes they make them bigger. This was a show where everything that was exhibited, the image was the same size as the subject matter. So this is an image of a Greyhound bus, the famous American bus, that's the same size as that bus. So that I include that just to give you an indication of the scale of our galleries. We're always interested in the crossover between books and exhibitions. I mentioned this renaissance of photographic publishing, particularly in the 21st century, and that is always a challenge. How do you deal with the book form in the exhibition space? What about photographers who primarily make books that don't make exhibitions? These are questions we're thinking about all the time. So in any given year, there will always be some kind of exhibition that addresses this somehow, either curatorially, or maybe it's a a photographer or artist who's interested in this relation between the book form and the exhibition forms. This is Raymond Meeks, The Inhabitants, we showed in 2023. Handmade books, as well as objects made for the wall. Vasanta Yoganathan, his project Mystery Street, which works equally well as a book and an exhibition. Oh, a very, very large image there from the Edward Bertinsky show that we had earlier this year. Bertinsky is an interesting case, actually, because he has an audience that is not just a photo audience or an art audience. People come to his work that know him through ecological concerns or planetary concerns about industry and economics. So I never think of photography having a community or an audience. It's really a kind of jigsaw puzzle of very, very different pieces. And so while we're focused on photography, I'm very aware that there are all different kinds of communities and audiences, all of whom should feel that ICP is addressing them somehow. So in any given 3-year period in our exhibitions program, we will be looking at documentary and photojournalistic work, historical work, work that might be very issue-based, work that's more rooted in a kind of fine art traditions, archival, scientific, fashion, sociological. It's a big field, photography, and sometimes it's a juggle to kind of keep it all in there together. Just an example of some of our publications. Had a track record of making exhibitions that were either catalogues or were kind of parallel publications to our exhibitions. The interesting thing about, when you put on a show, it might be on for 12 weeks, I think is our average, something like that. We change our exhibitions 3 times a year. At any point, we can have maybe maximum of 4 shows. We have as well as our regular galleries, we have what we call an incubator space on our ground floor, our lobby floor, kind of emerging work or projects that are in development. But when an exhibition finishes, it's gone. It's just gone. I mean, every institution likes to take installation photographs, but books tend to last longer. That's why we all still want to make books. So when we can, we make some kind of publication, and they can vary between giant. The William Klein book you see there, I think, was like 360 pages and covered 65 years of work. But we've also made publications that are much lighter on their feet, much cheaper to buy. They might be in a newspaper format or a zine format. So we don't have a particular way of making shows. We don't have a particular way of making publications, trying to keep it all alive and experimental. Our audience engagement obviously is really important to us. We have a big social media following. We have things like audio guides. We have guided tours of the exhibitions. We bring in lots of school children to our spaces. We have someone on staff who's bilingual English-Spanish and does alternates between the two, which is really great for us. We've just actually, at the moment, we have a big Graciela Iturbide exhibition, and for the first time, all of the texts on the wall are in English and Spanish, and we're aiming to continue that in our programming more generally. We do have a big reach, and there's a whole kind of following that we have online. That we've had for a long time, which was really became important to us when we were closed during the pandemic for 8 months or however long it was. but we kept that spirit of an audience that follows us even when we reopen. So a lot of our public programming is streamed online, so audiences around the world can join. You know, New York is not the most accessible or economical city to visit, so we're very well aware that people are interested in what we do in different parts of the world. That's a kind of encapsulation of what we're doing. I would say that while we're mindful of the history of photography, and we're very much engaged with what image makers are doing now and the state of the medium now, we don't take one position on any of these questions. We would rather that ICP was a kind of forum for a discussion or experience of the kind of almost permanently undecided nature and uses and ways of engaging with photography. If I knew what photography really was, if I could offer you, you know, a kind of definition of it, I think it would die in my hands and I wouldn't be interested in it. Everyone who works here relates to photography as a permanently open question. Yes, we do have this social commitment to photography as a form of social concern, but even that question is kept very broad. So that's really what keeps us alive and interested. The more time you spend with photography, the more you realize that it has never stayed the same. Its cultural role has always changed. Its technological forms have always changed. When a new technological form comes along, we tend to think that it was very stable before, but it never really was. And so we have audiences that might have been engaging with photography for several generations, but then we have school children that come in that have never seen a darkroom, that don't know what you know, a Polaroid might be, or a 35mm transparency. You know, they associate it with their phones. But we keep all of that in play all of the time, which is a lot. Great. That's my little presentation about ICP.
So thank you very much, David. Really, thanks. I think it really gives a very good idea about why this center is still referenced, you know, worldwide in a sense, because as you say, I mean, you just say the last word you used, it was playing, you know, and also, so this idea of just like being in what is life, to play in life is also to resist under it. It's also to have the capacity of creating different things. And as you said, I mean, there's the definition of photo is like it's an open question all the time. And so finally, what I think it's very interesting of the ICP, and I'm very glad also that you could be, you know, with what all your background and what the things that you have given to our diverse community, because, you know, we have read so many of your books and your statements, and we have seen also your different proposals, and I think it's very interesting to have you in this center that is in this idea of mobility. Finally, that it's just like, as you said, like crossing. You know, you started that this is the point of the center, to be all the time crossing between books and exhibition, to understand there's no scale, like the book is more important or the exhibition is like the audience. It started from also this idea of being a school, so it's the idea of circulation, the idea of really given the transmission of knowledge, of different views of the world, of different ways of seeing it. And this, I mean, and this live system finally is what keeps an ICP so vital also in the ecosystem, because it has understand not to stay in a small scale or on a fixed identity, but at the country understood as our Stuart Hall used to say, you know, there's this idea of identity as a constant reintegration and retransformation and reconstruction of the ours, and to be in the glaze of the others all the time, in order to understand that it's a tool that is part from the life, as life is always in this movement and transformation and vibration. No?
Yes.
So yeah, I think it was very enlightening to see that you talk about the connections, about like being in connection. I think that all the people that we work in this small ecosystem, but we are in this idea of connecting gaze, connecting knowledge, connecting past, present, and communicating futures, and this idea of connection and crossing, and the idea of change is always there, and not to be aligned in a small and unique idea at the end. And this is the challenge at the same time, because it's a lot, because to be in the movement constantly, I mean, it's not easy to do it. But
no, it's not, and that can get exhausting. I think it gets exhausting for people. The constant change in photography gets exhausting for people sometimes, because they come into photography maybe at a particular moment in their lives, and it's tempting for your idea of photography to fix a little bit at that point. And then when new things come along, you think, oh, well, that's not photography, or that's not serious, or that's not. Personally, I never had that. And it is quite dangerous for an institution to, I mean, being specific to photography is specific enough. Within that, you don't have to have a particularly specific sense of what the medium is, or what its directions might be. It's better to keep those questions open, I think. Yeah, it can get exhausting, and sometimes when I'm talking to students, I suddenly realize the student might have a completely different idea of what photography is as a medium, how they relate to it as a form of expression or exchange or circulation, or I'm constantly surprised by that. So in a way, you have to be able to respond to what people see in it and what people want from it, rather than what it is.
Yeah, I think that perhaps what I suppose it's an important thing is that to think that there's I mean, from ICP we all know that there's the school, and so from the school, I mean, this already means, I mean, at least for me, something very important, that that the institution, the center is wanting to listen to what it's, to the new generation, what is coming from there, and not only just like given knowledge of whatever standards are educated. So yeah, I mean, I think that from this idea of the school, it also makes understand very well how the center works, in this constantly engaging, rereading, seeing finally, where the photography system is working, how it's working, how it has evolved, and all the challenges that still have to meet.
It's true, and then even within teaching photography, we're always having to ask ourselves, what is it that students want to know? What is it that we think they should know? Some young photographers have an endless appetite for the history of photography, and it feeds what they do. For others, that gets in the way. Their subject matter and their research is the world out there. They don't necessarily want to be looking at 50 other photographers who work in a similar kind of way.
Right.
And so that as an educator, that keeps me on my toes, but also as a curator and a writer too. No, these are, I mean, I'm making it sound kind of complicated and difficult, but the reality is, if it's something that you're interested in, these open questions are constantly, you know, renewing and
Yeah, that's it. I think it's the more, I mean, perhaps the most difficult thing, I mean, to learn also that, you know, that things are transforming. Your knowledge is always evolving, and that perhaps we had, all of us, this sort of epiphany of what, you know, or books or knowledge that, you know, are have really had an impact in our lives in order, like, to open a certain way of doing what we do in our daily life. But from there, it's always, you know, we always enrich ourselves in order, like, you know, just going through different fields and different things that are coming out. And this is what it's also so incredible. There's medium about photography that it really can cross so many things and knowledge and elements, you know, that all this diversity come us to understand much better about the diversity and the complexity of life itself, in a sense, you know.
No, it's very true. Also, I think there's something to be said for the fact that, on the whole, well, we're not a state institution,
Mm-hmm.
so we're a kind of a non-profit. But I think all photography institutions, and a lot of them were founded in the late 60s, early 70s, for reasons that are interesting, but can't go into now. So quite a lot of them have had their 50th birthday recently.
Mm-hmm.
They always have a bigger cultural presence than other like non-photographic institutions. There's something, we're always punching above our weight, as they say here. So we do a lot more. We just produce a lot more than a lot of comparative, let's say, contemporary art institutions. I have to say, on smaller budgets, it's always tight. When people think about ICP, you know, while we are stable and we're here, and we're not going anywhere, we're not going to disappear. It's always a challenge, you know, to kind of keep the funding in place and be able to do the things that we really want to do. But that's the case with photography institutions worldwide, actually.
Absolutely, yeah. It's still in this side, little bit of the small, the small of the big family, you know, just like the little one of the big art family. Is still consider the black sheep, in a sense, or whatever that is, like.
Also, I think people are surprised at often how expensive it is to stage an exhibition. Very well.
Yeah, this is
you know, if you're showing a painter, you contact the painter, and then
he just, like, take his things from the studio.
There might be different printing that you have to do for the show if it's a contemporary artist, and then there's framing, or, you know, all of these things. But I'm always moving between exhibitions that really do need quite a substantial budget for their research or their production, but I'm also aware that a photography show can be made actually quite cheaply. So that show that I presented an image of, with all the images on the wall during the pandemic, these were unframed pictures. They were printed out here on site. They were put up with steel pins. Wasn't very much money to do it. We're going to have a show that's opening in January, one of 3 shows. 2 of the shows are quite expensive to present, but the 3rd show, which will actually be the largest, it explores the technology and the aesthetics of the photocopy, right? Cheap, humble photocopy. And I love the fact that, you know, we will have images on the wall that are, you know, canonical historical pictures have to be insured for a lot of money and taken care of in, museum conditions.
Mhm.
At the same time, there'll be a show of photocopying. That's photography.
This is exactly what you have pointed. I mean, all those diverse, levels of language, because it shows us about the diversity of our own world, and this is, I think, the most important thing. So why not to stay in some, only one level of things, So the thing is, all these diverse levels that bring us the capacity of one tool, or and all these different angles, what it can bring, to a real important conversation, about who we are in the world. Yeah.
Oh yes, and related to that, which is I try to be quite strategic about, is to do with the fact that you might, let's say we have 3 exhibitions on at the same time. Let's say the photocopy exhibition, which has lots of quite young, hip artists kind of connected with the style and the fashion world. That will attract a certain kind of audience, but then they might discover, the work of Eugene Adjei, who was photographing Paris into the 19th, beginning of the 20th century. At the same time, they will discover work by 2 contemporary photographers from the Ivory Coast at the same time. And in a way, this is how I feel that you move the dial in culture. People come for one show, and then they discover something else.
Yeah.
And that's when culture moves. They discover different kinds of photography, different kinds of subjectivities, different kinds of experience of the world, different kinds of experience of the image. That's where the energy is for me always.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think this is exactly, what we hope, I don't know if this center, but at least what we try to do from our platform, just like to bring this kind of network, that it will be in this experience, this multiplicity of experience, because we think that, nowadays perhaps the center as a national center or as a center as unity is not perhaps the main thing to do, but really to reinforce the network of so many initiatives, that all around, not only Spain, but that initiate also this dialogue as we did with you today, in order to always, enrich our experience and to really still be, curious and playful as kids, as you say, the idea of play. So to keep this idea of being young students again in the ICP in order like to reinforce our way of being better citizens in a sense. So
we really rely on being an institution that's serious and curious at the same time, playful, and I think if we have an identity at all, it out there in the world, it comes from that, rather than having a particular attitude to photography, let's say.
So thank you. Yeah, we hope that you keep this playful, spirit, in order to still bring in, new networks and exchanges. So you have friends here in Spain, like to be in contact with, and we'll still for sure have ICP as a reference, and now with you on this directive. So thank you very much, David. Yeah,
my pleasure. Here's to future exchanges.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thank you.